welcome back to the Daily AMG and welcome to the books I read in January. January was a fantastic month. I actually haven't even totaled up how many books I read, but I actually got a book off of the 5 books I definitely want to get to in 2019 list, and I read a classic that also goes along with another series that I have been doing that I need to do a video on, like updating ASAP. So let's see. I read 15 books in the month of January. Some of them were like smaller, so I will definitely, let me just get to those first. I'll get those out of the way. I don't have physical copies for those anyway. Okay, the shorter books that I read in the month of January that I don't have physical copies were Casino. This is by Nick Pileggi, also known as Nora's husband, because, you know, Nick and Nora, there's never going to be a time that I don't talk about Nora Ephron, okay? But I love mobster gangster, especially in the U.S., storylines, true stories, true crime stories, and this did not disappoint. This is obviously about mobsters and the casinos in the 70s in Vegas. It's fairly short. So basically you have like the mob who kind of ran Vegas for a time. And this became Wise Guys. So if you've seen Wise Guys with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Sharon Stone, is that Sharon Stone? Then you know pretty much this thing. So that was fantastic. I gave it 4 stars, which really like a 4.5. It was short and I really wanted more, but I know that there are definitely a lot more nonfiction works on this entire, all of it, just all of it. There's so much, there's an endless supply of nonfiction on the mafia gangsters in America in Las Vegas. So I have plenty to read if I want to pick something up pretty soon. So then I read Sparkle. Sparkle. Like, no, this is not the autobiography of Robin Sparkles, if you are a How I Met Your Mother fan. This is Sparkle, the girl's guide to living a deliciously dazzling, wildly effervescent, kick-ass life. Then I read Fearless and Fabulous, 10 Powerful Strategies for Getting Anything You Want in Life. Then The Champagne Diet, Eat, Drink, and Celebrate Your Way to a Healthy Mind and Body. And then Like She Owns the Place, Unlock the Secret of Lasting Confidence. These were all by Carly Alwill Leba. She is a girl power guru, obviously, by all of the names of her tiny little memoirs. I think all of them received like a 4 from me, and they all kind of talked a little bit, like there were some pieces of each one of them that was in the previous, because she's written these over like the course of like 10 years or so. So she definitely has some in like more recent works that she has worked out some of the kinks of her earlier things, because I really love that she was like she wasn't a Rachel Hollis. When she contradicted herself in one book, she talked about it in the other. Like, this is what I learned. This is how I've evolved. I hope to hear that from Rachel Hollis. I definitely feel like Girl Wash Your Face was terrible in parts, because it was a little bit of, I won't get into it. I will definitely pick up Girl Stop Apologizing or whatever, but I did not like Girl Wash Your Face, because I felt like she continually contradicted, and then she created other lies within her truth that she was telling women, and it just didn't sit right with me. So anyway, so all of these from Cara Alwill Leba were tiny, maybe like, I listened to them all, so I think there were like 1 to 3 hours. They were super, super small, just, and I follow her. I've listened to her podcast, and I followed her on Instagram for a while, and I saw that she had some books, so I wanted to know more about her and read more about her life. And like I said, all of them got like a 4.5 star rating for what they were. I felt like it was really good information, and I really just liked how transparent she was as someone who wants to be a female entrepreneur, a female leader in that entrepreneur field of empowering women through social media. And then I read 2, 3, and 4 of the Neapolitan series. These are by Elena Ferrante, and these will just rip you apart. They will take you for a wild ride. There are 4 in the Neapolitan series. You follow 2 best friends, follow them from childhood all the way through adulthood, and it is the course of several decades, because without giving too much this away, because obviously I can't talk about books 2, 3, and 4. I read book 1 with book club 2 or 3 years ago and never got around to reading the rest of the series, even though 2 of the girls did continue on with the series, and they have raved about how phenomenal they are. For whatever reason, I was like, cool, I'll get to it. And then I was like, no, I want to do that in December. Well, December was crazy, so I didn't get to it in December, so I made a point to finish it the first half of January, and I did, and I'm so glad that I did. There is also, the first one is called My Brilliant Friend, and it has been adapted on HBO, so that may be something that you have heard about if you haven't heard of the Neapolitan series. And from what I have heard, it is very much like the same like feels and grit. So it takes place in Italy. These are all translated works, and they are just, if you love books on female friendship, on just the interwoven interconnections of people and relationships and families, then you will absolutely love these books. They are phenomenal. Okay, I think that's the only books I don't have physical copies of. No, I did pick up You by Carolyn Kapnis, and I gave this, I gave all of the Neapolitans 5 stars. All 4 of them were 5 stars. Okay, so You by Carolyn, by Carolyn, I just say Carolyn, I don't know, by Carolyn Kapnis. I gave this 4 stars. This follows Joe, who's crazy, and he's a stalker. He sees this girl at his bookstore, and he's like, well, hello there. And you're all in his head. You're completely in his head. So if you have watched the show when it was on Lifetime, or now that it's on Netflix, that like inner dialogue that Joe has is exactly how the book is also. You are only in his head, only with his inner thoughts. I say for this one that it is very sexually explicit, so if that's not your cup of tea, there were some moments where I was like, oh, okay. Like, I've read a lot of things. I'm not one of those people that's like, ew. But there were definitely some things that I was just kind of like, well, all right then, y'all. And I felt like since I'm reviewing these and recommending them, that I definitely wanted to say, like, it's pretty explicit. It's explicit in language and graphics and those kinds of things also, especially if you've seen the show or know about the show. You kind of know what I mean as far as like, it's graphic, it has some it definitely Joe is crazy, but you do have, I actually really love this book because it was from a perspective that I've not read from to this extent, and it's definitely something where you start to let me say this, no one in this book is a likable character. You're not rooting for a soul. They're all flawed, they're all jerks, and you just don't have anybody to be like, like, oh no. And honestly, there was one character where I was like, Joe, you're gonna kill them off or what? Because like, I'm ready. So I gave this a 4-star. I definitely recommend it. I have heard this is number 1. There is a number 2 in this series or duology. I'm not certain if there's going to be more, especially now that there's like a massive popularity with the show, but I've heard the second one is awful. So there's that. Okay, now let me get into the books that I actually have. And I will start with The Song of Achilles. This is by Madeline Miller. And she wrote Circe, which Circe is on my list for one of the top 5 books that I want to read in 2019. But I definitely wanted to read this first. I know that Circe and Achilles they don't have anything to do with one another. I don't believe. I could be totally wrong. But within Greek mythology of it in and of itself, which I feel like I'm pretty semi-well versed in Greek mythology. It was always one of my favorite subjects. It's something that I have just loved on my own and read about on my own and studied on my own. So this is, gosh, okay. I gave this 4 stars, really 4.5. There was some slow building in the beginning. I don't want to give too much away because there are some things that happen that I was just like, oh, Madeline Miller, you're the best. So let me just read that. I'm not typically one to just, let me tell you something you could find online. But in this situation, I kind of feel like I need to because it's just so good. Also, if you're not into Greek mythology the way that I am, I still think you'll enjoy this. So she just has a way of writing that is, it's so good. Like this, it's just so good. Okay. A tale of gods and goddesses, kings and queens, immortal fame and the human heart. Achilles, the best of all the Greeks, son of the cruel sea goddess Thetis and the legendary king Peleus, is strong, swift, and beautiful, irresistible to all who meet him. Patroclus is an awkward young prince, exiled from his homeland after an act of shocking violence. Brought together by chance, they forge an inseparable bond, despite risking the gods' wrath. They are trained by the centaur Chiron in the arts of war and medicine. But when the word comes that Helen of Sparta has been kidnapped, all the heroes of Greece are called upon to lay siege to Troy in her name. Seduced by the promise of a glorious destiny, Achilles joins their cause, and torn between love and fear for his friend, Patroclus follows. Little do they know that the cruel fates will test them both as never before and demand a terrible sacrifice. Y'all, it's so good. It's really so good. And it was then next up I read Eleanor Elephant. Y'all, I can't. I just filmed my favorites video and I think I'm a little brain dead because that was like 50 minutes of filming. Okay, let's try this again. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. So this follows Eleanor Oliphant, who has had a very tragic life, and she lives in seclusion aside from her like Monday to Friday 8 to 5 grind. Her and a coworker are walking home like to the bus station. This takes place in hello.
Hi.
What's up? And she's trying to like, okay, bye, because like the life that she lives outside of work and on the weekends is like total self-destruction, and she just has this routine of basically like self-comfort to her. And she and her coworker witness an accident, and due to that, she's pushed into interacting with other people in a way that she hasn't in a very long time. And it's heartbreaking and heartwarming, and all of the hype that was surrounding it a few years ago was just absolutely it is outstanding. I have thought about this for a very long time, and spoiler alert, this is my favorite book of January, and I obviously gave this 5 stars. But obviously, I mean, I read 15 books in January, and for this one to be my absolute favorite, it says a lot about this book. And it is definitely worth picking up. I think anybody could read it and absolutely love it. It has a lot for everyone. The first book that I read in January was The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. This is the only Gillian Flynn that I hadn't picked up. It is a tiny little ghost story, and it is outstanding. I think I gave it 5 stars because it's Gillian Flynn. I will definitely say this also has some like explicit content as far as what this girl does as a job, which may not be suitable for everyone. I know I have a lot of people in my real life that watch these, and that's kind of why I want to say like, this might not be for everyone. So anyways, I absolutely love Gillian Flynn's writing, no matter what the subject matter might be. She always has just humor in the darkest spots and some dark humor. Like, it's just, she's a phenomenal writer. She's absolutely one of my most favorite writers. So then I read The Whispered Word, which is book number 2 in the Secret Book and Scone Society. Secret Book and Scone Society by Ellery Adams. This is the first book. This follows a group of women who have a book club in this small town, and it is a cozy mystery series, but there is so much more heart and grit along with the murders. Each of these women have had some sort of tragic, traumatic experiences in their previous lives, and they tend to deal with people coming into town that also have similar life paths that they have led that lead them to this small town and to find comfort. Like, one lady is a baker, and she bakes these scones that remind people of good childhood memories, and that always kind of helps them. Well, this is only the second book, but in both books, it's helped to, you know, get people talking about subjects that they maybe necessarily wouldn't, that maybe will help with the case that is going on. Because like I said, it is a cozy mystery, but it just is so much more substantial. I gave this 4 stars. I think that Ellery Adams is one of my favorite cozy mystery writers. We just really appreciate them being in a trade paper as opposed to a mass market. I like it better on my bookcase, but also it fits the tone of the book. It is definitely less cozy mystery, more literary fiction, and they're outstanding. Then I have The Dinner List. This is by Rebecca Searle. I gave this 3 stars. This follows Sabrina. It is her birthday, and she is having one of those 5 people you would invite to dinner scenarios. It is definitely magical realism because she has people like Audrey Hepburn there. And honestly, I picked this up because Audrey was in it, and because the synopsis on Goodreads basically only talks about like how like Audrey's there and da 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 da. I don't know. The synopsis, the blurbs that I've read prior to reading this were completely misleading, because you have like Audrey flirting with like her dad, and I'm like, no. Do not make Audrey Hepburn do things that no one thinks are Audrey Hepburn-esque things. Like, let's not. So I gave this 3 stars. It follows like a whole dinner night where she has like her boyfriend and her best friend, or her ex-boyfriend and her best friend, her dad, a professor, and Audrey Hepburn as like her 5 people. That may have been 6 because the best friend may just be there. I can't remember. But it's definitely magical realism, so it kind of plays on like a dream, and you kind of go through each person and what the background is. I think had it been someone else other than Audrey Hepburn, I probably would have liked this more. But since I am such a massive Audrey Hepburn fan, and I know so much about her life and her mannerisms and those kinds of things, the way that she was portrayed was just not. I mean, she just wouldn't be. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I still want to think about Audrey rubbing ankles with somebody under a table. Like, that's just not the Audrey that I have in my head. And that's people you would invite to dinner scenarios. It is definitely magical realism because she has people like Audrey Hepburn there. And honestly, I picked this up because Audrey was in it, and because the synopsis on Goodreads basically only talks about like how like Audrey's there and da 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 da. I don't know. The synopsis, the blurbs that I've read prior to reading this were completely misleading, because you have like Audrey flirting with like her dad, and I'm like, no. Do not make Audrey Hepburn do things that no one thinks are Audrey Hepburn-esque things. Like, let's not. So I gave this 3 stars. It follows like a whole dinner night where she has like her boyfriend and her best friend, or her ex-boyfriend and her best friend, her dad, a professor, and Audrey Hepburn as like her 5 people. That may have been 6 because the best friend may just be there. I can't remember. But it's definitely magical realism, so it kind of plays on like a dream, and you kind of go through each person and what the background is. I think had it been someone else other than Audrey Hepburn, I probably would have liked this more. But since I am such a massive Audrey Hepburn fan, and I know so much about her life and her mannerisms and those kinds of things, the way that she was portrayed was just not. I mean, she just wouldn't be. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's someone think about Audrey rubbing ankles with somebody under a table. Like, that's just not the Audrey that I have in my head. And I was just very turned off by the whole Audrey element. So had it have been like, oh, Sophia Loren was my favorite actress, then I don't care. Sophia Loren probably would rub ankles with your dad. I don't know. I don't know enough about her or care. Like, she's not one of my most favorite people of life. So that kind of ruined it for me. I gave it 3 stars. So yeah. So those are the 15 books that I read in the month of January. If you have read any of these, let me know down in the comments below how you rated them. And I will see you again for my January book haul. It'll probably be tomorrow because time has definitely gotten away from me. So I will see y'all later. Bye.